Welcome to What's Your Story? Today, you have a guest that's authentic, genuine, who's going to share insights and practical information that you can put to good use in your professional or personal lives today. Today, we're going to explore those students who are college-bound or in college who are trying to figure out what's next as far as a career is concerned. So this show is of great use to their parents, their grandparents, and the students themselves. My guest today is Vic Brown. Vic is a gentleman who's working on his third career, which is devoted to helping the students who are thinking of going into a career and currently are in college. Vic, welcome to
Thank
What's
you,
Your
Charlie.
Story?
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So let's start with a little bit of information about you and your career.
Well, I'd be happy to fill you in. I've been very lucky, actually. I've been fortunate to have two wonderful careers, and now I'm on a third. For 30 years, I worked for FMC Corporation. A lot of people won't know what that is, but it's a large chemical company. And I was an international business. I had the chance to travel all over the world, work with people of different cultures, work in different functions in the company, sales, marketing, manufacturing, that type of thing.
Well, how high did you go?
Well, we had 15,000 employees when I retired, and I was in the top 50. So
Wow.
I was a director of sales and distribution on a global basis for our chemical products. So
And how many years with FMC?
30.
Congratulations, man, that doesn't happen that often anymore.
No, it doesn't, and I think it could, and we'll get to that when I talk about the book, because I was able to, during those 30 years, have 7 or 8 different positions, different looks, different learnings, and every time I learned something from that position, I was able to bring that forward to the next position. So it worked very well for them and for me.
So you retired?
I retired after 30.
To do what? Because so you're in your early 50s at that time?
Yes, I was about 52, I guess.
All right, so you're retired at 52. So what was next for you?
Teaching. I had started life as a high school chemistry teacher. I did that for 2 years. Decided I probably ought to make some money if I'm going to. Back in those days, teachers didn't make what they make today. So I went with FMC for 30. And I always wanted to get back to teaching, though. I really enjoyed it. I had picked up an MBA along the way. And I found my way to Ursinus College outside Philadelphia. And I spent 13 very happy years there on the faculty teaching business courses, given the backdrop I had in my business career. So I was one of those walk-on professors, I guess, who came to class and could talk about international business and marketing and use case studies that I had really encountered over the years. It was it was very enjoyable.
So when you went into the classroom, what was the goal career-wise for you?
The goal for me was to begin to prepare these students for life in a corporation, the things they're going to encounter, the difficulties in making decisions, because decisions are complicated. There are many factors on both sides. So what I tried to do with them was to give them a case study, and to solve the case study or to recommend a strategy, they would have to consider many alternatives. And the idea was for them to get to think very objectively about the facts, not their own perceptions or biases. Think about the facts, analyze those, and come up with a solution that they would recommend to management. So that was really, I think, something that I thought the students needed to do to learn how to do that, because in their next career, they're going to be faced with complex decisions.
So there came a time where you retired from Ursinus.
Right.
But you had something you wanted to do waiting for you.
That's correct.
Your third career, so explain that to folks.
Third career is as a writer, and actually I started that during my Ursinus years. I started to blog on the side on issues around higher education, business, and policy. And I wrote some columns for different websites that were into the higher ed field. And I decided I wanted to do that full time. So after 13 years teaching, I decided I would like to write full-time, mostly on the higher education experience and higher education from my business perspective. And Lord knows we're hearing a lot about higher education, good and bad. And there's certainly, I thought I could contribute to that conversation. And above all, I saw deficiencies. I saw what the students were learning in college, which was prodigious, no question about it. But I also saw some gaps in what they were getting versus what they were going to need in the marketplace.
So what specifically was the big gap that you decided to tackle?
Well, it comes down, I'll just give you a case study, an example. A student came to me in his senior year last semester. He took my course as an elective. He was a chemistry major. And during my course, I would use case studies that, of course, were rooted in the chemical industry. And he came to me midway through the semester. He says, I never knew that I could do this with a chemistry degree. I thought I would have to get a PhD and be in the lab and just do research.
So give me an example of when you said do this.
Marketing, sales, market development, all the other functions that go. So I began to think that the students, when they come in, when they think about a choice of majors, that's a big decision. But there's a second choice of career, which is related, but it's not the same. For example, a biology major could go on for a graduate degree and work in a lab for a pharmaceutical company, or that same biology major could go on and get an MBA and work in sales, marketing, business development for a pharmaceutical company.
Exactly right.
So the students really need to think through in an organized way what they want to do. What I wanted to prevent was a student getting to senior year, and a lot of them do, without a clue. They just don't know. They've picked a major, they're going to finish the major, but they haven't selected it or thought about it in terms of a career. And they come and say, do you know of any jobs out there? Well, what kinds of jobs? Oh, anything. That's not good.
I agree with that 100%.
So
what did you decide to do about that? You're no longer have the students coming to you.
Right.
What did you decide to do?
I got to go out to them, and I got to go to as many as I can. So I wrote a book, and I will shamelessly pump it here, but it's just published, just out. It's called Welcome to College. Your career starts now.
Would you bring up the picture, the cover of the book for us, please? So what is the purpose of the book, the raison d'etre?
The purpose is to get students from their very entry into college to thinking about, how do I go about selecting a major? Who are the people I need to talk to figure this out? And then secondly, what are the things I can do with that major in terms of career choices? And then thirdly, how do I prepare for that by intelligently selecting my electives, my work-study experiences, perhaps my study abroad experiences, and putting that all together into one steady, comprehensive track that goes from college into the workplace. So I don't want students waiting until their senior year to think about it. I don't want students squandering those precious things called free electives early in their collegiate career. I want them to hold on to those and use them intelligently to support their career choices, their major choices. On a parallel track, Charlie, in addition to all that, I want students to start thinking about how they need to present themselves.
What do you mean present themselves?
How do they look? How do they dress? What's the language they use? What are the behaviors, being on time, sending thank you notes to people that should get them, et cetera. I want them to start to act in a very professional way because they are getting ready. They're learning to be professionals in every sense of the word. So I do focus a lot on behavioral, the soft skills in college, and that carries over in the workplace. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A little anecdote. I was sitting in the lobby of a business recently, and a young college student came in and announced to the receptionist he was there for an interview for an internship. It looked like he had just rolled out of bed. His hair was messed up, his clothes looked like they hadn't been washed, and he was there for an internship related to his major in college. Now, I don't know how usual or unusual that is, but you might know.
Sadly, it's not all that unusual today. I had a young man come to see me at the request of his mother. She knew I was working on this book, and he was a senior at a well-known university up in New England. Halfway through his senior year, he didn't have a clue as to what he wanted to do. So he came to see me, and I spent some time the night before, knowing his major, putting together some thoughts on things he could consider for careers and how to go about it. So we agreed to meet at 8:30 at the local Starbucks. He was 15 minutes late. He came in, he didn't have a resume, he didn't have anything with him, just himself. And he just sat down there, and I just went through the notes, told him what I thought his options were and how he could pursue this. And he said, well, I appreciate that. And I think he said, I appreciate that. Anyway, he took the notes. He got up and left, and I haven't heard from him since. No follow-up, no thank you. This is not the way to go about connecting with the real world, and the students need some guidance. So they don't do that.
Have the parents inquired?
I called his mother after he left, and she was very annoyed because he was late. She knew that. And she says, this is his big problem. I'm thinking, well, there's some parental guidance needed here too, but I kept that to myself.
All right, well.
But it's not unusual what you described.
Yeah, I have children, and similar situations have occurred in their transition from college into the workplace, so it's not necessarily unusual. In 1990, there were about 3,232 books under the category of career advancement, career management at that time. Today, there are like 10,000 a quarter that come out.
Oh, absolutely.
With self-publishing and things of that nature.
Right.
So what makes yours different?
Well, I think a couple of things. I've been in the corporate world for a long time, and then I was in the academic world for a substantial period of time, 13 years. So I've seen the higher ed situation from the standpoint of a teacher as well as a businessman. And I look at the students today and I think, if I'm a hiring professional, what am I looking for? And what are the colleges giving me? They're giving me students that are very technically trained, very competent, whether it's in chemistry or mathematics or whatever. But are they giving me the kind of student who thinks that they can make a contribution to my organization for many years? They're not looking just for a job.
Right.
They're looking for a career. And the way you have to approach that is, first of all, you have to have the personal skills to be able to connect. Organizations are complex. You've got to be able to work across groups, make instant connections, positive connections. Secondly, you need to think about.
Can we hold it right there?
Sure.
We have to go to commercial with our sponsors, but I want to pick up where you left off because what you just said raised some questions in my mind.
Happy to. Thank you.
Please stay with us. We're going to come back with Vic, who's going to tell us more about the value of his book as it relates to today's students. Thank you.
Say we've got grit, and we'll take it as a compliment. Because it's our uncommon drive, our spark within, that brings us together and sets us apart. We are Temple made. And when others take shortcuts, when others take breaks, when others take the easy way, we take charge.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me. Thanks, Liz. A woman without a lot of time.
Whether you're a gourmet cook or just want to eat like one, visit Rostelli Market Fresh, your home for the freshest, locally sourced ingredients to please everyone who loves great food. Our organic meats, quality seafood, and free-range poultry are cut fresh to order. Chefs create culinary-inspired prep foods made fresh every day, which pair nicely with our vast selection of fine wines and spirits. Choose from handmade pastas, artisan cheeses, organic produce, and grocery items, all from the finest purveyors. Rostelli Market Fresh, from our family to yours.
RVNTV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVNTV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Welcome back to What's Your Story? Today, my guest is Vic Brown, who's written a very interesting book called Welcome to College. This book is for people, young people who haven't gone to college yet or are in their early years, I would imagine.
Right.
And Vic was just telling us that what makes him different is the fact that he's been in corporate world, he's seen the pluses and minuses of well-prepared people coming into the workplace and the impact it has on their career. So could you go into a little bit more about that?
I'd be happy
What did you
to.
observe when you were in the corporate world?
Well, the reason I subtitled the book, Your Career Starts Now, is because I want the students to begin to think during their collegiate years very seriously about how they want to spend the rest of their lives. And what I saw too often were students who were just looking for a job. They hadn't thought much about the industry we were in or us as a company. They just saw the job advertised, they wanted a job. And I think there's a much better way to do it. So what I have tried in my classes and in this book is to encourage the students to think about the kinds of industries that they would thrive in. For some students, that might be, I've always loved cars, I'd love to be in the automotive industry. Or I'd love to be in the software industry. Or I'd love to be in a nonprofit environment. Whatever that is. And I walked them through a procedure where they can think about those in an organized fashion, and then select those top 5 that appeal to you, and then start looking at the organizations in each one, read about them, and select the top 1 or 2 organizations in each of those areas. And it sharpens their thinking about their major, how to use it, and then when they go to interview, instead of just interviewing for the job, the hiring manager will say, well, why are you here? And the student can say, well, for several reasons. Number 1, and this is in their cover letter, which I instruct them also, I'm interested in this industry because I am interested in you as an organization because you're a leader in what I am interested in. And the third thing is, I don't want just a job, I want to build a career, which means I'd like to come in and start with this job. I'd like to learn from it, build a skill set, and then I'd like to move on in the organization into higher levels of responsibility, bringing that knowledge with me to the next job.
My sense,
learning more.
My sense from listening to you is that you observed a lot of people that didn't structure the cover letter that way.
No, and cover letters, I tell the students in the book, the resumes for students, they differ a little bit, but they're all basically the same. I went to school, I worked here, and now I'm ready to start. It's the cover letter that will distinguish you. And a student who can write a thoughtful cover letter that shows that reflection over the years as he sharpens or she sharpens their focus, the resume is a statement of where you've been. The cover letter is a statement of where you want to go. And that's a big difference. And I think organizations, if I look at my own career, 30 years, I think I had 8 different positions, but you learn from position 1, you bring that to position 2, you learn more, you contribute from position 1, and you build better employees who are more diverse in their backgrounds and their skill sets. It's good for the company, it's good for the individual. So I really would like students to think about a win-win scenario where they can stay with one organization and thrive and grow, rather than just taking a job.
This book seems to be a great complement to what they're getting from their career counselors or those people in their lives.
Well, to the extent that they use career counselors.
What do you mean?
You'd be surprised. Of course, I work closely with the career counselors at Ursinus. One of their big frustrations, and I think they share it with other schools, is that students really don't start to think about talking to them till their senior year, when in fact that has to start much earlier. So students really need, as they think through their choice of major and then careers, gather input from faculty, gather input from other students' faculty members, and you'll hear about them, gather input from visiting speakers, gather input from adjunct faculty who are in the workforce, and believe me, they're teaching for the love of it, not for the money, because there isn't much money in adjunct faculty work. I've been there. And what you want to do is start to gather as much, and then career services, gather as much insight, experience, and ask them to help you formulate your plan. And actually, the second part of the book, part 2, is really concerned with the student going into the workforce, growing into that corporate environment, organizational environment, and what are the things you need to do besides what we've talked about? Be on time, behavior in meetings, returning phone calls. It's not rocket science, but it's good fundamental and I encourage the students to do that in college, present themselves as serious students, on-time students. They don't procrastinate. They speak well. They use the proper language. They dress. I'm not asking them to dress in a coat and tie. I understand it's a campus. But dress in a way that, by the end of the day, dress for where you may end up, not for where you think you're going to end up. We had a small college. Often, the president of the college would randomly call in a couple of students to meet with some visiting alumni or donors. Well, you want to look the part. So always be prepared for what could happen. So there's a lot of the soft skills underpin the hard skills. You need both to be successful, of course. But in my experience, you will be surrounded in college and in the workplace by really smart people who know a lot. And if you can set yourself apart through your personal behaviors, the way you comport yourself, the way you handle business courtesies, the way you have the thoughtfulness to write a handwritten thank you note to people, that will set you apart in such a way that you'll be noticed dramatically.
I have a talk that I give on the 10 reasons people come in second, and it also applies to interviewing for a job. And the things you just described are part of the decision: does this person fit in here? Does this person become part of our culture? Will this individual reflect our values to our customers, to our vendors, to our suppliers, to our stakeholders? So you're dead on with this. This is it. I'm getting from this conversation, the reason I was smiling is because this is more of a passion project for you.
Well, it is. I'm 70 years old now, and I'm at the stage of my life where I want to give something back to the next generations as much as I can. I love teaching the college students. I've stayed in touch with many of them. They're wonderful men and women. Having lunch with a couple in the next week or so, actually. And what I'd like to do is give something back that students can read, not just this year, but this book should be evergreen. You know, it's valuable for years and years and years, because I don't think the situation is going to change that much. So it's a career in a sense of doing something for somebody else. People say to me, oh, I'd like to be a writer. And I said, well, go do something else first for 60 years or so, and then you can be a writer, because it's really about the content. It's not about making money, unless you're John Grisham, I guess. So this is really a work of passion, like you say.
So this could be the legacy.
I would love to leave a legacy as a good teacher, a competent teacher, a good mentor, a good writer, and somebody who left something behind for the next generations of students.
Can you, well stated, can you go back to when you were teaching, where the origin for this book sort of happened? Because this just didn't happen after you left.
No, it really happened when that one student came to me in his senior year and said, I had no idea that I could do something very different with this degree. That was the germ that began to develop, and the seed germinated. And so I thought about that, and I took a critical look at what the colleges were providing students versus what the employment community needed and expected. And I focused on the gap. And the gap was on that organized process you have to go through to think through majors and careers, and the soft skills that go with it. So that was where it started. I thought about it for a few years. I retired from teaching. I was writing a lot of commentary pieces, and I publish a lot on higher education. But somebody said once, reading blogs is like getting stoned to death by croutons. No one crouton is that heavy, but together they kind of overwhelm you. And I thought, yeah, there's got to be something better than this, because what I write today is gone tomorrow, really. But hopefully in a book that stays, it gets handed down, it gets passed around, and even my grandson someday will hopefully read this book from his grandfather and say he left something behind.
We hear a lot about parents as they're helping their child select schools.
Right.
Talk about graduation rates, right? And it seems to me that they'll graduate, but the question is, how long does it take them to figure out their career?
Well, that's a
And
good.
that's if you look at an entire person's career, 20, 30, 40 years, if they don't start correctly, it could cost them a lot of money and
It's
a
a
lot of
s-
frustration.
It's a sad situation in America. Not too many people are aware of this, but of all the students who enroll in a four-year college, only 60% get a degree in 6 years. 40% never finish. And a good chunk of that 40% drop out after their first year. So it tells me a couple of things. A lot of students aren't ready for college. Maybe they need a couple more years of maturity. Some students really have aptitudes that lean in towards other directions, vocations, that type of thing. So the colleges bring these students in, and it's really kind of disheartening to know that rather quickly, 25% of them aren't going to return for the second year, and 40% of them aren't going to finish. So it's a very expensive proposition, and the students who drop out still owe that tuition for the time they were there, or the loans, or whatever. So really what I'm encouraging students and their parents to think about is think about the college that fits for you.
Right.
This admission scandal where they're getting their kids into high-powered colleges,
Oh, yeah.
that may not be good for the student because they may be in over their heads. That's just not good for anybody. So think about what fits, go for that, and at the cost of college today, don't accept what many colleges say is, well, come in for 2 years and then pick your major. Sample our academic delights. Grow, ask the big questions. Well, that's fine, but at $60,000 or $65,000 a year, I wouldn't spend too much time sampling the delights. I would start to move on with it. And I encourage students by the end of their first year to pretty much have that major figured out. And then they can start building towards that. And believe me, there are a lot of academic delights, and they're very good. There are a lot of courses in the liberal arts core that round out a student very nicely, and they can take those as they go. But I wouldn't put that fundamental decision off too long. That could be an expensive mistake.
Going back to the number of the 40% that
Right.
you were talking
Right.
about, a lot of that is just they don't have clarity yet. And this book, your way of thinking, helps them get clarity sooner so that the rates will hopefully go down in the number of people that drop out. That's such a shame.
I would hope so. And I would hope we don't have as many students who are juniors who then decide to change their major because they're caught in a credit trap. They need certain electives and certain prerequisites, and that pushes a lot of them into a fifth year.
Yeah, listen, I know that can be costly.
Yes, right, absolutely so.
Vic, I hate to say this, but the show is coming to an end.
Oh, I could talk all day.
I know, well, maybe you can come back again. But this is the time of the show that I give you an opportunity to look into the camera and speak to the audience about anything you haven't said or things that you feel are necessary for them to hear at this point.
Well, thank you. And I'll speak now to the parents and the grandparents of students, to the employers who are going to be hiring students. The students themselves are not going to find this book. That's just not going to happen. But I'm hoping that the high school guidance counselors and the parents and the college admissions counselors and career services staff will lock in and find this book. Employers, because part one in college, part two in the workplace, it all goes together. And I'm asking you to buy it. It's readable, it's very affordable, and it's available in softcover or ebook formats from all the usual places. And it makes a great graduation gift for a high school student. It makes a great stocking stuffer at Christmas for students that are getting ready, or for students in college thinking about their majors, thinking about what they want to do next. So I just want to get the word out to as many students as I can with your help.
How would people get in touch with you if they want to?
Yes, my website is victorbrown.net. One word, victorbrown.net, not .com. It's all there. You can contact me through the website. You can read about the book and get the purchase links on my website.
And you mentioned some book signings, so will they be listed on your website?
Yes, I will, and I'll put it out on LinkedIn also, but I was
Good.
doing a book signing at the Barnes & Noble store in Devon on June 1st. at 1 o'clock. I am participating in Meet the Author Night, which is open to the public at the Pyramid Club on July 11th, and talking about the book in detail and answering questions. So I'll be doing as many of those things as I can to help promote the book.
Now, I would encourage you to reach out to Vic and seek his wisdom at a pivotal time in your child's life, as well as if you're the child in your career. Vic, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I appreciate it.
And you're doing a great thing here. I appreciate it very, very much.
Well, happy to have the
Again,
chance.
thanks for tuning in to What's Your Story. Next week, I'll bring you another guest who's authentic, who's genuine, who provides insight and practical information that you can put to use in your professional and personal lives immediately. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.